Welcome to the Healing Sexual Trauma Summit. I am Marcy Little, your host, and with me today I have Charna Cassell. Charna, welcome.
Thank you so much, Marcy. It's such a pleasure.
Yay. All right. In a second, I'm going to tell you how amazing Charna is. But first, I like to start all of our interviews, both for my benefit, for Charna's benefit, and for your benefit, to just give us a second to center ourselves in this moment, in this present moment, get as present as we can, and sort of begin to tune into our own intimate terrain of the body. Yes, I notice Charna's neck is already saying, can I please move? So if your body is already saying, can you just move me in a kind of way? Please feel free. Yeah, and maybe take a little, an exhale, an audible exhale come right out of your mouth. Begin to notice the sensation of your feet, whatever they're in contact with, and whatever you're seated on. Just let that energy descend and come on down. And then that may naturally bring you into contact with the flow of your own breath. Without trying to change or alter or control, just allowing the breath to be where it's at. Although it may want to change, and that's totally fine too. It may want to deepen. Just knowing that this terrain is your terrain at all times, and if at any time during our talk you start feeling a little bit overwhelmed or need a break, hit the pause button, give yourself a break, walk around, shake it out, and come back when you're ready. So I'm going to invite you back. Charna and I are here to welcome you. All right. Charna.
Thank you, Marcy.
Oh, you are welcome. I know. Yeah. It's such a good thing to do.
Even having, done somatic work for almost 25 years, meditating for almost as long, it's always it never ceases to amaze me how instantly
the drop in
your state can shift, even just the littlest bit.
Uh-huh. Yeah, right. Yeah, and then more of you is available. And I want as much of you and as much of me and as much of our listeners to be available as possible as we explore the work that you do. So yeah. Thank you.
And I love that you said to the listeners that they can pause it, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, I noticed this, even if I'm watching a movie or something where there's like, there's building tension or there's anxiety, and I may just like pause, do something. That's the nice thing about streaming, right?
Yeah.
You can modulate.
Right. Yeah, totally. Great. Okay. So I'm going to tell you a little more about Charna. I actually really loved reading this bio, and so I'm psyched to share it with you. Charna Cassell has helped people heal and celebrate their sexuality over the past 25 plus years, first as a sex educator and sex toy clerk at Good Vibrations, then as a teacher, trainer, workshop leader, somatic coach, and body worker, and now as a psychotherapist specializing in working with trauma. Beyond a master's degree in counseling psychology, she acquired tools to guide others by healing her own sexual trauma and reclaiming her body and self-expression. I feel like that's the most important piece, the one that I relate to the most myself. In addition to writing articles, Charna is currently writing a book, The Authentic Yes, 6 Steps to Sexual Freedom. The book is part memoir, case study, and exercises that guide you back to yourself. She is also recording a podcast, Laid Open, focused on what enhances and hinders sexual freedom, illuminating the messy truths about what it means to have a sex life after trauma. She's in private practice in Oakland, California, and you can learn more at www.passionatelife.org. Charna, oh, you have a new visitor here. Welcome, and welcome to your furry visitor.
Sushi. She is my healing sidekick.
Ah, very nice. Is that a poodle?
She's a golden doodle.
A golden doodle.
Yeah.
Sweet. Okay.
The golden retriever is a good
All
component.
right.
Yeah.
So before we launch any further into our interview, is there anything more you'd like people who are listening and watching right now to know about you?
I think that is pretty thorough, and they'll find out as we go.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So one question I love to ask everyone I interview, and I don't always tell them I'm going to ask it, is what made you want to be part of this Healing Sexual Trauma Summit?
Well, it's definitely my life's work, and I'm very committed to it. And I'm flattered to be in such great company. And there's the particular piece that you're bringing, two things that are said right in the title: compassion and embodiment. And the process of embodying in a compassionate way. I mean, one could say that it's inherently that, but you may have seen this, and I definitely see this as a therapist, that people come with impatience and frustration and all their inherited beliefs. And I really see compassion as a byproduct of embodiment. And I'll get into that more later. But so yeah, no, I mean, there wasn't a hesitation when I read that. I was like, yes, that was a full body yes. And what that feels like is this expansive, automatic, and I have a very full existence. I have a lot on my plate, and so I practice saying no to a lot of things. But this was definitely not one of those things.
Yes.
So I'm excited, and I haven't read your book, and I'm excited to read it and get to know more about you. And so it felt like, I'm all about being in support of other people that are working towards a similar cause.
Yeah, great. Awesome. Thank you, Charna.
Yeah.
And that felt good to hear. So back on. Little zip, zip. All right. So the title of your talk today, or your interview today, is Unwind Your Past, Your Life is Waiting. And I am wondering if you could tell us what that means to you to unwind your past, particularly when there is sexual trauma.
Yeah. So it, it can mean so many things. There's one of the things is how trauma gets stored in the body, right, as an energetic impulse, and that there's a pulling in and a hardening often of the tissue around, like a contracting in towards the spine, right? Someone can look really fluid, and then you can touch their body and not feel a lot of movement in their tissue, right? There's so much holding. And so it's like going in slowly and layer by layer. There's also this piece of, we think time is linear, and that it's like, oh, wouldn't it be nice if we like healed this thing and then we go to this next place, and then and instead it's a spiral, right? And we revisit these places repeatedly. And so there's kind of an unwinding maybe of a decade, and then we come back to that same place a decade later, and we have new tools, and we're able to be with it in a different way. And then, so I think of the image of this is a little more like unfurling, but of a fern, right?
Opening.
Opening and opening and reaching towards, it's like, okay, here I am. This is how it might feel. This is the only way that I can be safe. And I have to just like closer to my bones, the better, versus out in the world and visible and a bigger target, right? So this is, it's like, think about breath. You're holding your breath, hiding, contracted, and then right. So expanding into yourself, expanding fully to the edges of your skin and beyond.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I can talk about it for a while, but I don't know if you want me to keep going or if
Yeah,
there's.
I love that. I love that image of the fern, and it's sort of in its nascent stage where it's all curled up and tightly wound, tightly bound in a sense. And
Mhm.
then with the right elements, it begins to be able to do what it's meant to do, which
Right.
is open towards the light of the sun and receive all the nourishment and continue to create and be its own creation. And I love that, the opening all the way to the extremities and shining it out and beyond. And
Mhm.
then of course, like you said, it's like a spiral, and there are going to be moments where we come back and there's going to be another contraction. We're going to know that place again. And yet we've grown and we've evolved and we've changed. And like you said, we have these new tools and we're going to experience it differently. But this expansion and contraction, I'm a yoga teacher, and
Yeah, yeah.
like one of those basic principles, universal principles that work, like you did it with the breath. It's like we exhale, there's a contraction. We inhale, there's an expansion as
Right.
we move towards this great unfurling. Love
And
it.
the thing, as it relates to yoga as well, right, is that if your muscle is really tight,
Mhm.
it's not about like it's like force that hamstring, straighten your leg. All right, you have to. There's a slow process into it, and you can see progress over time. Perhaps you couldn't touch your toes or the floor, and so on. And so the same thing, like that you don't want to force the fern to open prematurely,
Right,
right? Or
right.
yourself. And what the way I see it, the language of resistance, I don't really believe in. I think that there's wisdom to resistance, right? And
Right.
so there's being with wherever you are versus making someone wrong for not being flexible, not being ready, not being, it's like, let's be with where we are. And then the opening can happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As you say that, I'm remembering too how common it is for particularly somebody whose boundaries have been violated
Yeah.
to be too open.
100%.
And then the work is different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
No.
yeah, and they're all kind of in there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I can feel that when if I'm doing body work with somebody, right? It's like their tissue, sometimes you can feel the hungriness for contact or the flaccidity in their tissue. Like some people have very bound tissue and other people have more collapsed tissue. Some people are more numb. Some people feel they feel everything,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so it's like some people you need to wake up their system and other people it's a slowing down,
Mhm.
right? So the people who often are like overly porous,
Yes.
right? And everything's flowing in and everything's spilling out. And then that's like where something like meditation is really useful, right? Creating more containment and
Yeah.
more structure. Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Um, so in this unwinding, and we've sort of seen it a little because you have all these, it sounds like you have all these methodologies or all of these skills that you can bring to working with people that you work with. So how do you go about this unwinding? And we've touched on it. Is there more you want to say?
Yeah. I want to pay respect to my teachers. I mean, I've had a number of teachers, but primary teachers, Richard Strozzi Heckler and Stacy Haynes. Stacy Haynes created generative somatics, and Richard Strozzi Heckler founded the Strozzi Institute, and then they also collaborated. And so through Richard, I learned, I studied and became a master somatic coach, right? So embodied leadership through him and working more with trauma and social justice with Stacy. And so some of the practices overlap. And that's why I want to mention them both. Using martial arts based practices is something that Richard created. So using Aikido off the mat is the way he talks about it. And what that does is it helps if you stand someone up and do a practice with them, it creates just enough stress for what's automatic in their system, and just the way yoga works similarly, right? Just enough stress to see it's like what's embodied, what's automatic. Are there thoughts? Is there a breath pattern? Is there a closing? Are there certain memories? So I work a lot with boundaries, teaching, you know, very nuanced aspects of different kinds of boundaries that you want to use in different situations, for instance, and people's thoughts about who says no, and especially if there's been sexual trauma that's been erased, it's been eradicated. um, Even, just I remember the first time I was doing these practices, and um, just saying no, and I didn't understand what we were doing exactly, that through repetition of these practices we're rewiring the brain through the body, right? And then you have access to having a boundary that you couldn't have even conceived of having if you've just been thinking, I want to be able to have a boundary, right? Train the body to be
Yeah.
able to see it as an option.
Yeah.
And the first however many times I did these practices, I would just cry and I wouldn't know why. And I
Yeah.
would feel so much fear. So through repetition, just like any physical practice, it becomes easier. And it's a deeply, deeply satisfying part of my work, is doing those practices. Um, and then I use body work. Um, and what I call trauma released body work. Some of that comes from work I learned from Stacy and Richard. And then I'm also trained in a variety of other physical modalities. Body dynamics is a beautiful form of somatic work that's out there that doesn't get as much acknowledgement. And there's a kind of somatic holding um, that works with ages like, birth to 2 years old, that creates a new imprint around, like pre-verbal
Mhm.
imprint around, there's nothing you need to do for me to love you. And that care can consistently be there. So it's working with attachment on
Mhm.
a gentle nervous system level. So sometimes there's a re-education and a going in to unwind something, and other times it's a more passive nonverbal experience, and other times it's the person on the table is more actively engaged, doing physical movements that come out of Feldenkrais, or whatever modality.
You're like a
And
one-stop shop.
I I've, I've been called the connector. I also really love, I love, if I'm not the right fit for somebody, I love matching people with the right resource, because I've had to, it can be a blessing, it can be a curse, but I've manifested a lot in my own physical body. I've somatized a lot since childhood. And so that means I know a lot about the body, and I know a lot of different kinds of resources. So also meditation. I teach meditation and do guided meditations, or refer people to other kinds of meditations. There's a device that I found maybe 6 years ago called the Lucia #3 hypnagogic light machine, which was created by a neurologist and a psychologist in Austria using brain mapping technology. And so using this machine, it's this remarkable nervous system reset, as well as it increases the alpha and theta brain waves so that basically it's like you're going into a meditative state, or it can gently bring up subconscious material to be integrated. Um, so this has been actually a great resource for some clients that are healthcare providers and teachers and things like that right now, or parents, and feeling particularly overwhelmed during these times.
Yeah, and there's a lot of that, for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Um, what in your experience working with yourself and working with others do you find are the biggest challenges or blocks to unwinding our past?
Mm-hmm. Um, so, well, first you have to be aware, and and acknowledge what's happening for you. If you're minimizing and dismissing your experience, then you can't be with it, right? You can't be with it to unwind it. And very commonly, I see a lot of clients that have had mentally ill parents, narcissistic or borderline parents, and the voice of that parent is still very present in their mind, and they've taken on those belief systems. So if you're denying first, and then we can get to like lack of self-acceptance, that's a really big one. You're neglecting it, you're turning away from it. So you have to be able to turn towards something first. And then a lack of self-acceptance can look like, I don't want to be feeling what I'm feeling. I shouldn't want this. These needs are not okay. Right. So making yourself wrong. People can stay stuck with like their foot on the gas and brake, where they're like impatient and frustrated and mad at themselves for not being further. And I'm 45, or I'm however old I am, and I should be beyond this. And if you're berating yourself, again, this piece of like, if I can accept where I am and be grateful for how all those strategies actually protected me, instead of making myself wrong for it, then there's a little opening for how to move beyond it.
Absolutely.
Were you going to say something?
Well, I love what you're saying so much. And it's reminds me of Tara Brach's RAIN practice. If you're familiar, the first step is to recognize, oh, there's something going on here. And then the next step is the A in the word RAIN, which is allow it. And often for so many of us, myself included, just by allowing what is present to be here, the shift happens. Like that is the medicine. That's like what is needed. It's like, oh, I see. And then I can feel kind of feel into my wholeness again. So, yeah.
This is a kind of a silly example, but it's something that I think is perhaps relatable. But how many people go, and if they've had body work or a massage, and they don't like the way they're being touched, don't say anything.
Yes.
Right? They're just like, and then you're like, tighten, fume, whatever it is, versus if you actually speak, whether it's on a massage table, whether it's with a parent, whether it's with a lover, you say what you need and want.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It diffuses frustration. It creates an opening for something else to happen.
Yeah.
And you're not making, like, part of the tension in the body and the tense breath and the anger and resentment, it's the not allowing of what is.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I should be enjoying this touch right now.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not enjoying this massage and the way this person's touching me. But I can't speak up because that would be bad. I'd be bad for doing that, or whatever the heck the thing
right.
is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Years ago, I was at the most, like anybody would be blessed to be in this situation, right? I'd been looking forward to it for a year. I was at a writing retreat with Cheryl Strayed in Maui. Okay. Like amazing. Right.
Right.
And my someone very close to me died weeks prior. And so I was in so much grief, and it was so hard to take in any of the beauty or want to connect with these women that I didn't know. All I wanted to do was be alone and cry. And, it's really hard. So we just have to be where we are,
Yeah, I can imagine you there, and you're resisting the fact that where you need to just be with your grief, because here you are and you've set yourself up for this incredible experience. And it's like, but so
you're supposed to be connecting like those ladies over there.
Yeah. Great example. I can really relate to that. I'm going to ask you another question. Okay. What are some signs that one has moved beyond survival and into living fully in their body?
Such a nice question.
I love that. You put your hand right here.
Yeah, I'm feeling that my body is really warm and my hands are very cold. Um, so safety. I mean, I think that this is a quite universal one for people who have healed from sexual trauma or in that process. But I had a total lack of safety in my system. I just really did not feel safe in the world. And I also very much did not feel safe around men. They were my abusers. And not all men, obviously, but a handful. Um, and so starting to be able to, two parts, like locate safety with others, be able to feel safe in relationship to anyone, and then also feeling safer inside yourself. And that, I just want to say that just that alone is a lot to unpack, like what safety, if you don't have a reference point for it, right?
Yes.
Could be like being swaddled in a blanket, could be with your dog, could be, so even just like having little seeds, starting places for that, and then growing that.
Mm-hmm.
uh, an experience of more gratitude, um more ease in your senses, interpreting sensation as sensation, on uncrossing the wires of anxiety and excitement, right? This is a really common one where they get crossed with sexual trauma, where it's like turn on is terrifying or wrong or shameful or powerless. So being able to be like, oh, this is anxiety, or this is nervousness, and this is just really intense sensation in my body, and I know that I'm not going to die. um Being able to be with, so I just want to start that because there's a total continuum here, right? So it could be like, being multi-orgasmic could be down here, while being able to take a deeper breath. Like there's all these, I like to think of micro successes,
Right.
uh, wherever your starting place is.
Yes.
Um, being For me, one of the things that was a byproduct of becoming more embodied and healing was feeling more connected to what's unseen, right, versus being scared of things,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
So feeling more connected to the universe. I ended up on a spiritual path. I It's kind of like my body forced me onto it, but uh, being more okay with uncertainty, surrender. That, it's like, if you need to be vigilant and guarding and tracking and, you know, um, no, yeah, I mean, I could. This is like I could go on and on. So tell me if you're like that's good for now,
No,
Charn.
I think that's actually,
Yeah.
I feel like you really did. You went from sort of there are the micro stages
Mhm.
and deeply honoring where we're at as we move through micro stages and the spectrum of survival to signs of thriving and lots of different kinds of signs of thriving, including something I really, really, really connect to is that connection to what you can't see
Mhm.
and the aliveness of a realm that is beyond the senses in a sense.
Right. Something. Can I say something about that?
Yes, please.
So one of the things that I wrote a paper in grad school about this, and I couldn't, at the time there were no articles or books written, and I'm sure now there are a ton. Um, but trauma as a doorway to spiritual awakening.
There it is.
Right.
Boom.
And that, I mean, again, I say often, I feel like there are these things that are like, there are these, someone else might call it a curse, but there can be a blessing in it as well. But I think what happens with sexual trauma or different kinds of trauma, and I do want to talk about, when I say sexual trauma, what I even mean by that. Um, that there's access to because there is not protection and resource in the third dimension, you're pushed out to reach for resources beyond conventional resource or what can be seen. You're forced to have access. And so I think a lot of people who have different kinds of trauma have more increased intuition,
Mhm.
um, in different ways, right? Psychic, you could call it psychic abilities of different kinds,
Mhm.
empathy, feeling their feeling and being connected to their senses.
Yes.
So what can happen with, with more healing is it going from being a survival strategy honed into a skill that
Mhm.
you can turn off and you can turn on or modulate, at least, if not totally turn off. Yeah.
Sorry if I got so excited that I scared you just then. I
Oh,
was
no,
like,
no,
"Oh."
that was it. That was an intentional amplification. No, I would.
Because it's true. I mean, what
Yeah.
you're saying is absolutely feels how it is for me and for so many of the people that I work with. And yeah, it's like the hidden gift
Mhm.
that can then be further developed and more fully embodied as well.
Well, yes, and that's the part is like, so if I had to go into outer space or into this, void or sink into the earth or whatever it is to get away from this, it can feel like, are you crazy going into this thing that is where there's pain makes sense?
Yes.
So it's like, okay, how do I actually tether back into and come back into this physical body?
Mhm.
And how do I, develop safety in it? How do I feel like I can protect myself?
Mhm.
Um, yeah,
And that's
totally.
where the compassion starts to build and develop and grow. Yeah.
Right, right. Well, it's it's such a process of trusting, like developing that trust. It's um yeah, yeah. Anyways,
Yeah. Lots there.
there's so much. I know I'm like trying to managing wanting to be more concise because I can get really like expansive and have
Yeah.
potential conversations.
Great. I mean, it's your passion to work, and I really also resonate with it so much that it's like, what? So
Yeah.
yeah, we should start to come into a closure. You just mentioned, and I want to give you an opportunity to speak to this of wanting to define sexual trauma.
Oh, yeah. So thank you
You're
for catching
welcome.
that. Um, so my book, what I'm writing about, and because what I've seen over 20 years of working with people is, excuse me, um, is that so how I'm talking about sexual trauma. So there's sexual abuse, right? There's sexual assault. And then there's all of the other things that people don't typically think about that impact our sexual self-expression and how we embody ourselves as a sexual being. And everything from being emotionally surrogated by a parent, having like them be energetically invasive, to having an addicted parent or a mentally ill parent, and all the ways that we or racism in our society, growing up as a man, conditioning as a man in the South or a woman in the world, all these things create constriction in the life force in our system where we're like, this is how I have to be safe and be loved. And then what does that do? It's the same thing like your sexual life energy and your life force are the same thing. So things get twisted and constricted
Mm.
if there's not permission for things to move through you or to be expressed, right? And
Yes.
then and then there's mystery, right? People don't necessarily get, or a huge one is religious shame, right? Like any kind of shame, but what religion puts on people. And so I started tracking over time. People would come to me and they're like, there must be something else that happened. And it's like, this right here, that can be enough
Yeah.
to impact and create what's happening for you and how you live in your body,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, and often these things I want to say, like ancestral trauma, you know, um, um, social trauma, developmental trauma, all these things are layered on top of one another to create who you are. And it's hard to like peel them
Mhm.
apart and separate them out. but yeah, I just that feels important to say because there's so much minimizing
Yes.
happens.
Yeah.
Like
Right. Just being in this world, it's a traumatic place.
existence, I had birth trauma and utero trauma.
Yeah.
So coming into the world and trusting, that's why for me it's like trusting
Mhm.
God, the universe, force, whatever you want to call it. Like that's a healing process in itself,
Yeah.
right? I get to be here. I get to belong.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
It's right somehow that I exist.
Right. Like you get, and that's this piece of like, holding someone and being like, there's nothing you need to do for me to love you.
Yeah.
Just because you exist,
Yeah.
you get to be loved. It's like, you know.
I write about that as part of my journey to healing too. It's right in there. Yeah. My my therapist slash teacher one day just said to me, Marcy, if you're wrong, the universe is wrong.
Mm. Yeah.
So there it is. Charna,
Bumps.
it does. Oh, good. I went too fast. All right, wonderful. So, Charna Cassell, I'm going to thank you robustly for your participation in the Healing Sexual Trauma Summit. So once again, Charna Cassell, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.